welcome to my channel. Thank you for joining. My name's Lara. I'm dual Canadian British and I moved to BC in November 2022, and I with my husband bought our first home here in BC in July 2024. And I just want to make this video to just talk you through our process of buying the house in BC and what the steps were, and hopefully this will just be helpful for other people that have either moved to Canada from another country and are looking to buy their first home in BC, or people that are already in BC and looking to buy their first home. So yeah, this is just a video on what our experiences were and just some tips I have for you. So I don't know if things work differently in other provinces, but I'm just going to be talking about how it worked in BC because that's where we bought. So my husband and I had always planned to buy a house in 2024. Originally, we wanted to buy it in 2023, but I think we were being a little bit naive then because we'd only moved at the end of 2022 and we started our jobs at the very start of 2023. And I think mortgage lenders are going to want you to be in a job for a little bit of time before they lend you all this money. So we kind of had to push back from 2023 and we were like, okay, 2024 will be the year. We didn't plan to start looking until late summer of 2024, but in April time this house came on the market and we really liked the look of it, so we thought we'd start the process and just have a look at it. So there's two things you need to do, or that I would recommend doing before you go and view a property for the first time. The first is that you need to find a realtor. Now, we knew which realtor we wanted to use because my dad bought a house in Penticton and he used a realtor who was really, really good, so we knew that we wanted to use the same realtor. But I guess you could ask people that you work with for recommendations on realtors, post in local Facebook groups, just do some research yourself and just reach out to a few and see who you get the best vibe from. And then the other thing that we did before we viewed this property, and that I would recommend you do as well, is we got a pre-approval amount first, so we knew what numbers we were working with, because we didn't want to go and view a property and then, you know, figure out what we could be pre-approved for and then we're not approved for the amount of this house that we've already looked at and fallen in love with. So I would definitely get your pre-approval first. And to get the pre-approval, I would suggest that you try a few different places because you're going to get different numbers from other places. You can try banks, mortgage advisors, things like that. We ended up getting ours with one of the banks because my husband does work for one of the banks here in Canada and we were able to get a good rate through them. But yeah, we definitely got different numbers with different mortgage advisors and banks. So I would definitely recommend doing that and getting your pre-approval in place first before you go and view the property. Sorry about my cat. So you have your pre-approval number and you go and view the property and you fall in love with it. This is what happened for us. And my realtor said you can put in an offer on a property and it's subject to financing. So when you make an offer on a house in BC, you make the offer, but there are certain subjects that you can add as the buyer and that the seller can also add as well. So we made an offer on this house subject to financing. That was our big subject, was subject to financing. It's also subject to the house report coming back okay. So you have a home inspector come out and view the house and they do up a report for you, and it's also subject to that coming out okay. And then there's just other things as well. You have to do a title search on a property in BC. Well, your realtor will do it for you, but it's just making sure that all comes back okay and everything. So you make an offer subject to your subjects, and then you enter into a 2-week period where you work through your subjects, and then after the 2 weeks there's a subject removal date where the subjects are removed and the contract is like proper, firm and binding. So we put the offer in on the house and then our realtor drafted a contract of sale and purchase which we reviewed and then signed, and that goes over to the seller's realtor and they have a deadline in which they can accept counter offer and things like that. So that's kind of how it worked when we put in the offer on the house. So we made the offer on the house, our realtor did the contract, sent it over to the sellers. We did counter offer a couple times on price, but it was, you know, the seller approved our offer pretty quickly, and we had to start working through our subjects for the 2-week period. So obviously the most important one for us was that financing. So we went back to the bank and said, we've made an offer on this house subject to financing. We need our firm approval in place. So this is where our mortgage advisor was getting the firm approval in place for us. So we had the pre-approval, we were pre-approved for that number, but now we needed the firm approval in place to say you have this mortgage. And that took a long time for us. It took nearly the whole 2 weeks for it to fully go through, because she kept having to request additional paperwork from us, and it was so stressful because I know we had the pre-approval, but it wasn't like firm and in writing, so that was definitely stressful. During the subject removal period as well, we also had the home inspection, and that all came back fine, so we were good to go on that. And I will just mention that when you make an offer on a house as well, you do have to give a deposit payment. You can decide what that amount will be. We kind of got an idea from our realtor on what she thought would be a good amount to put down, and you do have to pay that deposit within the 2-week period of the subject removal date, and that will then go towards your final down payment, but you do have to provide a deposit towards the property up front. Anyway, fast forward 2 weeks later, our home inspection came back okay, the title search was okay, and we got our financing in place and we got our mortgage. So we were so relieved, so happy. The sellers, they had certain subjects as well. Like I said, we had subjects, they did as well. Theirs was just that they found a house to move into within the period, which they did. So all of our subjects were removed and the contract was fully binding. So at this point, if you walk away from the contract of sale and purchase, any money that you've put down as a deposit, you don't get back. So I think the house buying process makes so much more sense here than it does in the UK, which is where we're from. In the UK, like, somebody can just walk away from a deal at any point until the point when you exchange contracts, and like the seller could have put a load of money into, you know, like selling the house. The buyer could have put a load of money into like paying for a home inspection, and it can just fall through like that, and there's no security. And it's absolutely crazy to me. Like, I can't believe that. Even when you make the offer and you go into that 2-week subject removal period, that it is still like a binding contract. I don't think there's a penalty if you walk away from it at that point, but it is like still binding. And it's just crazy to me that there's nothing like that in the UK, and I just think it makes so much sense here, because it's just nice to know that that is, you know, your offer on your house is secure, it's going to go through. Or if it doesn't go through, there's going to be some kind of penalty. Like, I think if the seller would have walked away from the sale, then we would be compensated. So yeah, it makes so much more sense. And in the contract of purchase and sale that our realtor had drafted, you set your day that you want to complete and have possession, so you know when it's completing, and everything is set to stick to those deadlines. So our completion date on this property was July 16th, and then we had possession on July 17th, and everything went according to plan. All the dates worked, subject to the contract of purchase and sale, so that was all great. And something else you're going to need for this whole process is a lawyer. So I would recommend looking for a lawyer as soon as you've put in the offer on the house. Before your subject removal date, because you need a lawyer in BC to buy a house. You can't do it without one. And essentially they pretty much handle everything from there. They prepare all the necessary paperwork. You go in and sign papers with them. You give them the rest of the down payment, and they will handle everything for you. So that bit's kind of quite chill while you're just waiting to move in, because they do everything for you, and yeah, they're great. So yeah, we had quite a long period of time between when we made the offer on this house and when we moved in. So we just had a couple of months to just pack and prepare, and the lawyers handled everything else. So on the day the transaction completed, our lawyer let us know that the transaction had completed, and then the possession day, our realtor contacted us when the keys were ready and we had access to the house, and it was amazing. We got our home. So that was our house buying experience and how everything worked for us. Hopefully that's helpful. I tried to explain it as best as I could, but I'm sure there's probably some things that I forgot. And I'm just gonna mention just a couple of other things that might be helpful to know when it comes to buying a house. So one thing that's interesting to know is you as the buyer of a property don't pay your realtor fees. The seller pays the realtor fees for both the sale and the purchase. So that's just something helpful to know if you're buying a property in BC. Another thing that's helpful to know if you're buying a property in BC, there's usually property transfer tax payable on a property. My dad had to pay that on his house in Penticton. However, if you are a first-time home buyer, you've not owned property anywhere else in the world, not within Canada, anywhere else in the world, then you are exempt from PTT because there's a first-time home buyer's PTT exemption. So if you haven't owned property anywhere else in the world, then you qualify for this first-time home buyer's PTT exemption, and you don't have to pay property transfer tax on a house up to the value of $835,000. So you save a lot of money with this first-time home buyer's exemption because property transfer tax is a lot of money. I think we saved like $8,000 in PTT, so that's really helpful to know if you are a first-time home buyer and you're buying in BC. And then the last thing I'm just going to include that I think might be helpful is when you buy a house in BC and your realtor does up the contract of purchase and sale, a lot of things are included in your house that you buy in BC. So when you buy and sell your home in the UK, you have to get rid of everything, because I remember when we were moving to Canada, like having to sell our like fridge, washing machine, dishwasher. It was an absolute nightmare. But in BC, again, I don't know if this is all of Canada, I am just talking about BC and how things worked in BC. You get fridge, washer, dryer, dishwasher, you know, all of those appliances are included in your contract of purchase and sale, and they come with the house when you buy the house, which I think is amazing. It's so much less stress than having to move those things or sell those things as we did in the UK, and you move into a house which is obviously not fully furnished because your furniture's not there, but you have all of your appliances like ready to go. I think it's so helpful that they are included, and yeah, I just thought that would be helpful to include because it's definitely not like that in the UK. So I hope this video was helpful and kind of gave you a rough idea on the house buying process in BC. I'm not a professional in any of this, so I'm just talking through what our experience was, and I just hope it helps. And if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them. So just leave them in the comments below and I will answer the best I can. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you're interested in seeing the house that we bought, I did do an empty house tour when we first moved in July last year. I'm hoping to do an updated one now that we are more furnished. That should hopefully be coming in the next few months because I'm going to wait until the weather's a bit nicer so I can show you outside as well. But yeah, if you're interested to see a house in the Okanagan in BC, then check that video out. And if you're interested in general life in Canada content, then please consider subscribing. It would really mean a lot to me, and I'm hoping to post a lot more this year. My next video I'm uploading should be a cost of living video in BC where I just talk through what our monthly bills are to give you an idea of the cost of living in BC. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video and found it helpful, and I will see you next time.